So the next principle of adult learning we're going to look at is the principle of practice. Now, no learning experience would be a true learning experience if we weren't actually turning the theoretical learning into practice itself. Now, adult learners are often engaged in learning because a particular problem needs to be solved, or they want to overcome a certain challenge or desire in their life. We've looked at that obviously from our previous principles. So practicing our skills in a controlled environment allows them to grow self-efficacy, belief in their abilities, in their new tasks, and prepare them to act autonomously outside of the learning environment. Basically, the more that an adult learner gets to practice new skills and competencies, or the application of the theoretical knowledge, the more transformational impact the learning intervention will have, the more impactful and transformation your course will actually be. So I'm showing you here a couple of pictures of what's called the cone of learning, initially developed by somebody called Edgar Dale. Which shows us what a huge difference is made to learning and to the retention of knowledge that people have from our courses based on the methods and the senses that are involved when we're delivering training and education. So you can see from here actually how this starts to incorporate everything we've been talking about, the experience side of it, making it relevant, but also these mixed learning styles as well. So you can see that actually when we're just lecturing and talking to people, or just getting people to read information, only a tiny proportion, 10%, of your learning will actually be retained and memorized by your students. So we want to be trying to make sure that although we definitely have to include these things, because as we've seen, this is how some learners actually learn. Without this, you'd be reducing their learning experience. We need to try and find ways of incorporating all of these elements within our training. So can we make sure that we have reading and writing, but also get them to demonstrate, have a go, practically apply their learning? Can we get them to discuss and synthesize? So what we mean by synthesize is when we learn something new, whether it's a skill or a piece of knowledge. Synthesis is when we then figure out how to apply that knowledge or competence to a completely different scenario, to a completely different circumstance within our lives. And then you can see here how practicing by doing, a huge 75% of what we learn when we're practicing and doing something is actually retained. So even when you're teaching an online course, if you can find a way of saying to your students, here's the information, here are the steps, now let's go and do it together. You provide them with either the information or step-by-step guidance to actually then take them through that task. So try and find ways, if you can, of including that as much as possible. Now, there is the highest level of retention of learning is when you get people to say and do, i.e. teach others. Can you get them to do a project, for instance, where they come back and deliver a project or a presentation of what they have learned? You can also get them to write a short I don't know, a short class, for instance, on what it is that they've learned and what's come out of their learning experience. There's a number of different ways that you can do this. So as you can see here, this is a really, really useful tool when it comes to deciding how you're going to deliver your learning and what method you're going to use so that you can get people practicing. Overall, make sure you get them to have a go and include that in the design, in your activities within your course.